With that being said, we're going to jump right into it today with our hype noise. We tried this out last week. It was pretty fun. So I thought we'd keep the hype train rolling. Well, last week we had 3 stories. This week we only have 1, but still, it's trudging along. And that is Eagles' new running back coach. So he's not even the offensive coordinator. Jamal Singleton, not very committed to the every down back role philosophy. Obviously, with Joe, who's not here today, Miles Sanders has been a hot topic behind the scenes and on the podcast for a number of weeks now, as we and the fantasy football community start to kind of super analyze his role and what he's capable of doing in the 2021 fantasy season. Jacob, I'm coming to you first because you're the only one here today. Let's just look at his current ADP, right? Currently, right now, he's being drafted in the latter half of the 3rd round. So anywhere from like the 306 to the 310. So late 3rd round. There are guys that are also going there, like DeAndre Swift, going a little bit sooner, right around the 303. And then you have Antonio Gibson, also projected to their ADP is practically identical right now, both at the 307. So before you address that question in whole, do you buy the hype? Are you buying? What are you buying? Are you denying? Like, what's going on here with Miles Sanders?
So I've had many conversations with Joe from the First Round Fantasy Podcast about Miles Sanders. And this is throughout the past couple of years too, because we both were super high on him coming into last year. And then I was just super disappointed throughout the season. And it's not all his fault. It's not all Miles Sanders' fault. Miles Sanders is a very talented back. And we always say it's all about situation, right? Most of these running backs, all of them are talented. And then the ones who have elite talent, you can interchange them on different teams and situations, and they'll succeed based on that team and that situation. So I always say, if you put anybody, Miles Sanders, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, in the Alvin Kamara role on the Saints, they're going to succeed. They're going to perform similar numbers to Alvin Kamara. So it just really is about all the situations. So it's not Miles Sanders' fault as a player. It's just their team. And now they're going from a coaching staff and regime that drafted him and wanted to support him and set him up for success to a coaching regime that didn't do that. And then also it's crowded there. I mean, they drafted a new running back. You still have Jordan Howard. You still have Boston Scott. So it's crowded. And then you hear this.
Whoa. You forgot someone.
Oh, they have Kerryon Johnson.
Baby. Coming back, resurgence.
I won't be surprised if we see them looking at Todd Gurley too, like some of these other teams are. But I just don't like the situation. And to me, I noticed recently, it's like, look, what I try to identify in fantasy football is, okay, I know this player's on this team. Now, what is the outlook like? How is this team setting them up? Are they setting them up for failure, success, or somewhere in the middle? And I just think as far as fantasy football goes, the Eagles are setting Miles Sanders up not to succeed or not to be the type of fantasy player we're expecting from, or at least the people who believe in him are drafting him that high. So bottom line is, like, it's too crowded. I don't think you have anything, like, you can look at the games that Jalen Hurts played last year and with Miles Sanders and determine, okay, with this sample size, is that what's going to happen in this upcoming season? But I just don't think there's a big argument for this is why Miles Sanders is going to succeed. So we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, he's the guy you want if you're going to draft a running back from the Eagles. But I personally, I would much rather have Antonio Gibson. Swift is close, but push comes to shove, I take Swift because he has less competition. I know the Lions OC said a similar thing, right? We talked about it last week, but there's still less competition. Swift is a pass-catching running back, and they're going to be down a lot. Their defense sucks. So I would take both those guys over him.
Let me ask you this. Todd Gurley does get signed by the Detroit Lions, hypothetically speaking. Then you have 3 running backs in Detroit and you have 3 or 4 running backs in Philadelphia. Are you taking DeAndre Swift then still over a guy like Miles Sanders?
To me, wherever Todd Gurley goes, it doesn't affect anything, to be honest. Like, I'll be more worried about Adrian Peterson joining one of these teams than Todd Gurley. Like, it's sad to say, but I think Todd Gurley's might be done being like a fantasy impact player. And and I say that meaning like even him joining a team doesn't affect the other running backs to me that much.
Yeah. For me, going back to Miles Sanders, this has always been just follow the pieces, right? You mentioned the new regime with the coaching staff. You've mentioned, the moves that they're making. Kerryon Johnson, Jordan Howard. They're keeping Boston Scott. Corey Clement's not there. Sorry, but you look at those things, and it's very unlikely that all of them are on the roster come the start of the season. Kerryon Johnson could get cut, Jordan Howard could get cut, whatever. But these aren't the first time we've heard comments like this before. Not only from their new running back coach, but also from their head coach and their offensive coordinator. And we saw glimpses of it last year. I don't deny, and I think this is what Joe and I talk about a lot, that I don't deny that Miles Sanders has talent. I think he could be a great workhorse back in the NFL. He's proven it over his short sample size and his short career. But they don't give him the opportunity because for some reason they view, maybe – in terms of the NFL, they view health over success in terms of individual success. They want to have a greater team success. Therefore, they're going to deploy guys out there with specialties because they want to keep other guys healthy. That's just the way some teams do it. That's the way some coaching staffs do it. That's why we have multiple running back committees, more so now than we ever have in the history of the NFL. The lone workhorse running back is a dying breed. With that being said, a guy like Antonio Gibson, who's being drafted almost identically to the same spot as Miles Sanders, I would much rather have him because he seems to be going into a reverse role. Not only that, we have a track record of Ron Rivera, who essentially gave CMC that type of workload when he was the coach over in Carolina. Gibson coming in as a rookie last year, he's ready to take that next step. I am 100% taking Gibson over Miles Sanders, and I am 100% taking DeAndre Swift over Miles Sanders as well. So I think we agree, correct?
Yeah, and bottom line for me is this was already a bad situation. So it's not like the Swift situation where we maybe were expecting Swift to have a big workload even though Jamal Williams is there. But hearing that from Anthony Lynn was not encouraging. This was already a bad situation, and they just made it worse by saying this. So it makes me want to stay away from Miles Sanders even more.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good point, and that's a good transition to move on. We're done with hype news for today. Just one story, but it was a good one, and we're going to keep the hype trend rolling next week as well.